Hi, welcome to Wistful Takes. Today I'm going to be talking about a love song for Ricki Wilde by Tia Williams. I just finished reading this book about a week ago, and this book was really interesting. I really liked the take on mystique and mysticism and all the ways that you can meet people in the you meet people and you never kind of explain why you meet them, kind of like the red string theory, but throw in some romance, throw in Ricki, who is just this girl who thinks she's just not doing enough or not being enough, and yet her family makes her believe that. Then she goes and figures out a way to make it on her own in a city like New York, Harlem at the time. And, she's someone who is an old soul, you would say. She loves being in, in between different centuries in her clothes, you could say. She's inspired by the old Harlem, the jazz renaissance and all, the literature renaissance, the black history and the prominence that happened in the 20s. And then, of course, like all books do, you meet a mysterious man with the name Ezra. And Ezra is just this character who, you kind of get glimpses. The way it's written, it's like written in like diary entries, flipping through and back and through time. And you meet Ezra, and you're like, wow, who is this? And his penchant for music, and then he talks in, as you discover, she talks in like the olden days, or old language, you would say, losing manners and ma'ams and what the not, which I think is still possible in this world. But and then spoiler alert, you realize that he is actually someone who's from the past, and he's a being that cannot be killed, which is interesting. He's not a vampire, he's not a monster, he's just a perennial, which is really like powerful. And how he becomes a perennial is tied with mysticism, and yet it's interesting they blend in a little bit of mental health, manic depressive episodes that leads to this reality and feeling. And it is so rich in that. And then you talk about, not only is it rich in the storytelling and the romance, because it is Tia Williams, it's a love song, of course, so there is a lot of spicy scenes, which I was really, they were really good, because I read all sorts of different books and literature, so I loved the title, A Love Song for Ricki Wilde. It's like a penned letter to love. And I thought that I was just drawn in by that alone, just the title. And I've read Tia Williams' 7 Days in June before, and so this was an interesting take. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. She does a really good job of talking about the reality of being black, and at that time and this time, and we see it in the characters as they portray and go through their challenges. I really just loved how it just spanned. He finds, his cursed to love. Spoiler alert. Cursed to love a love that will die, and in so doing, the curse also curses her own family, and her daughter Adelaide, who's then the older woman that Ricki meets, who gives her this beautiful house to renovate. And then there's the piano scene. Oh my God, the piano scene. And then it's sort of you paint this question of there are things that science does not answer. Their feelings and the soul itself. Can you create life? Can you create soul? Can you create, like, scientifically? No, not without, we know how babies are made and things like that, but like, then you can, can you create it? Can you brings in the Franken question of creating life, and which again, this is going a little bit off tangent, but I really enjoyed reading it. I think it also dances and talks about music. The Stevie Wonder record that is mentioned in the book, I have listened to it. It's a really amazing record. I think I will listen to it again now that I've read this book. Um, I think it is really cool to be written about in many ways. You leave such an impression on somebody. They write something lasting, whether it be a poem, whether it be uh, like a verse, where it be a song. And a song is something that is something that can get stuck in your head. And always you can call back to it. And yet there are scenes in the book where Ricky's sleeping next to Ezra, of course, passionate moments, and she's singing their song in a world where they're together and yet not together. It's rather tragic. So it's kind of reminding me of I saw Hadestown in where I live, and the whole Eurydice story, and you were like, oh, maybe they could break the end, and this in a way does, by what happens to Adelaide, the lady. Uh, and I don't want to say she's the lady who was a benefactor to Ricky, and that's how it ends, and it's beautiful, and I just love the mystique. Even the way the art is drawn, and the colors choices, and it just calls to you. I had heard about it on TikTok for a long time, so I was like, oh, it sounds really interesting. And I'm glad I read it. It, just tries to explain the inexplainable, and some things are just not explained. So this is, Wistful Takes, a love song for Ricki Wilde, Tia Williams. Really great book.